اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك وأتوجه إليك بنبيك نبي الرحمة محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. يا أبا القاسم يا رسول الله، يا إمام الرحمة، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا أمير المؤمنين، يا علي بن أبي طالب، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا فاطمة الزهراء يا بنت محمد، يا قرة عين الرسول، يا سيدتنا ومولاتنا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيهة عند الله، اشفعي لنا عند الله. يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي، أيها المجتبى يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا عبد الله يا حسين بن علي، أيها الشهيد يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن الحسين، يا زين العابدين يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي، أيها الباكر يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا عبد الله يا جعفر بن محمد، أيها الصادق يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا موسى بن جعفر أيها القادم يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن موسى أيها الرضا يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها التقي الجواد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن محمد أيها الهادي النكي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها الزكي العسكري يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا يا وصي الحسن والخلف الحجة أيها القائم المنتظر المهدي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. Ask for your hajat. يا سادتي وموالي إني توجهت بكم أئمتي وأدتي ليوم فقري وحاجتي إلى الله وتوسلت بكم إلى الله واستشفعت بكم إلى الله فاشفعوا لي عند الله واستنقذوني من ذنوبي عند الله فإنكم وسيلتي إلى الله وبحبكم وبقربكم أرجو نجاة من الله فكونوا عند الله رجائي يا سادتي يا أولياء الله صلى الله عليهم أجمعين ولعن الله أعداء الله ظالميهم من الأولين والآخرين آمين رب العالمين. سورة المباركة الفاتحة.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين بالقاسم محمد وعلى بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله خالق كل شيء وهو على كل شيء وكيل له مقاليد السماوات والأرض والذين كفروا بآيات الله أولئك هم الخاسرون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Tuesday night, Tawassul was recited. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to fulfill the hajat of mu'mineen and mu'minat, grant them their wishes, inshallah. And we pray for all of those people who are suffering around the globe, especially the people of Parachanar in Pakistan and other devastated areas. Continuing with the Tafsir of Surah Zumar, I recited for you ayat number 62 and 63 for tonight, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, God is the creator and guardian of all things. Allahu khaliqu kulli shay'in وَهُوَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ وَكِيلٌ. And then it says, in his hands are the keys of the treasuries of the heavens and the earth. لَهُ مَقَالِيدُ السَّمَوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Those who reject God's revelations will be lost. And وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْخَاسِرُونَ. These two ayat talk about an important phenomena, which of course is repeated numerous times in Quran 4. And that is the creator is none but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is a phenomena which is something which even the kuffar and the mushrikeen of that time would acknowledge. That even when the mushrikeen of Makkah were asked, who created you? They won't say these idols. They'd say who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they believed in a khaliq. What they didn't believe was in a Rabb. Yes, these idols did not create us. We know that for sure. We're not that dumb. In other words, that's what they were saying. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us and that's it. That was all his duty. These idols are Rabb. They consider them to be their arbab. And they thought that everything that was given to them was through these idols. Every good that received and achieved was through these idols. If they were given awlad, it was through these idols. It was given, if they were given sustenance, it was through these idols. All the favors and the benefits and the bounties were from the idols. But who is Khaliq? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they didn't deny the Khaliqiyat of Allah, they denied the Rububiyat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We on the other hand believe what? That everything is from him. Allahu khaliqu kulli shay'in. Allah is the Khaliq of everything. Wa huwa ala kulli shay'in wakil. And not only that, but he's also guardian over everything. and everyone for that matter. Meaning, if any good reaches you, it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And every bounty is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And to further emphasize this point, he spells it out in the very next ayah. Lahu maqalidu samawati wal ard. To him belongs the treasuries of the heavens and the earth. Meaning, if someone says, well, where do we get the food from? The food bank. Where do we get the money from? From the money bank, right? So Allah has all the maqalid of the heavens and the earth. Meaning He has the keys to all the treasuries. All the bounties, all the treasuries, He has the keys. So the one who has the keys is the one who's owner of all of this, and He's the one who's providing it to everyone else. So this is a very layman type of response to these kuffar. But وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ, but those who deny, reject the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His revelations, أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْخَاسِرُونَ, these are those who are at loss. So the polytheists accepted, again, the creatorship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we read in verse number 38 of this surah as well. If you ask them who's the creator of the heavens and the earth, they will say, God is. لَيَقُولُنَّ اللَّهِ. However, they also attributed supervision and protection to these idols, as I mentioned just now. Messages that we can derive from these ayat. Number one, a true monotheist is one who believes in all aspects of monotheism. Monotheism is not just that God is one, but monotheism has further branches as well. Monotheism in khaliqiyat, in the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the only creator. There isn't any partner in the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So don't assume anyone else is creating. Allah is the only creator. He's the creator of all things. Khaliqu kulli shayin. It couldn't have been more clear than this ayat number 62 from Surah Zumar. Khaliqu kulli shayin. Monotheism in Allah being the Lord and the Rabb, guardian over all the things. He says, وَعَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ وَكِيلٍ. He is wakil of all the things that are there. Monotheism in worship, ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, tawheed ibadi. So you have tawheed sifat, you have tawheed dhat, and you have tawheed in ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, worshipping Allah. As stated in the next verse, do you command me to worship others besides Allah? That will be the next ayat, ayat number 64. أَفَغَيْرَ اللَّهِ تَأْمُرُنِّي أَعْبُدْ. Inshallah, we'll discuss that next week. So that's number one, a true monotheist, a monotheism in all of these. Then we also have something else which we call that we depend on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As children, they depend on their parents. As you and I, we depend on someone in our lives, our spouses, our parents, our siblings. For different things, we depend upon them. Dependency is something which we can't neglect. Dependency in existence is through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning what? All existence, both in creation and in survival. That's where the problem was for the mushrikeen. They didn't have any problem in the creation, but they had the problem in survival. So Allah created, no doubt. But for survival, we don't need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's resting. He's not playing any role in our lives. So because they couldn't see the role of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they were rejecting it. So what are we? Both in creation and survival are dependent on Allah. God's power to create. God is not only the creator of the existence, but continues to create. Meaning continues to provide. It's not that He did it initially, got you a kickstart, and now He's resting. You do it yourself. I'm not going to provide for you anymore. No. Every moment Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is providing. And then futility of denial. This is a very weak argument that they have. The disbelief of deniers does not harm Allah. He is the owner of the heavens and the earth. وَالَّذِينَ كَفْرُوا أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْخَاسِرُونَ. So it doesn't matter to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala whether they believe in Him or not. Does it bother Him? No. Does it take anything away from Him? No. Who's hurting from it? Who's being harmed from it? These very people. So if you believe in Him, then you receive. If you don't believe in Him, Allah still bestows upon you through His mercy. So all these kuffar and mushrikeen, those who don't believe in Allah, who don't believe in Creator anymore. There are many who don't believe in the Creator. They attribute everything to Mother Nature. They attribute everything to, Big Bang Theory. They attribute everything to evolution. And they get to that singularity. But then before that singularity, they're drawing blank. There's like nothing, we can't go beyond that. So that's where their stop is. But after that, they're very firm that there's no existence of God-like figure. This is fairy tale. This is the creation of religions, and of course, only those who are backwards, they believe in such things. Some of the key words, maqalid is a plural for miqlad, which means keys, like mafati from miftah. Some say the word maqalid, in lahu maqalidu samawat, to him belongs the keys of the heavens, is the plural form of miqlad or miqlid. These are two other words that are mentioned, meaning a key. It has been said the word has really been Arabicized. It wasn't originally Arabic. It was brought in from the Persian language. In Persian, the key is called kilid. Farsi is a kilid. Kilid then was Arabicized into maqalid or iqlid. And that's how they got to this word, maqalid. Having keys in one's hands denotes what? If I have the keys to my house, well, I can share my keys with others. But if I have the keys to my house, what does that mean? I'm the owner. That's what your perception would be. You have the keys to your house, so you're the owners of your house. This house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, multiple people have the keys to this house, so it doesn't belong to any one person. It belongs to everyone. But of course, in order to keep the integrity of the mosque and the safety and the security, not everybody is given that key. We can't just go ahead and give it to the entire community. Everyone take a key whenever you want to come in now. So few people have the key, but of course it's the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But individually we have the keys to our houses, our cars. What does that denote? The fact that we are what? The owners of it. When Allah said, Lahu maqalidu samawati wal ard, Allah has the keys to the heavens and the earth. What does that make him? Make him to be the owner of it. So it denotes ownership, possession, and the ability to dispense at will. That's important. Sometimes you're the owner, but you don't have the ability to dispense at will. That's the difference between Allah, that He is able to give whoever He wants to. Therefore, the sense of this verse is the keys to whatever treasures lie hidden in the heavens and the earth are in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He alone is the custodian. No one else is needed to be shared in this custodianship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He is the dispenser in that it is He who gives whenever He wills and to whomever He wills and as much as He wills. So you see some people are bestowed a great deal, some people are not bestowed that much, and that's according to His justice. Then there's also monotheism in creatorship, further explained. Noble Quran, to explain monotheism in this khaliqiyat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, considers everything that qualifies as an instance of a thing, shay. So the interesting word that is being used over here is the word shay. Shay in Arabic is what? A thing. So everything, we say the word thing, which can be called a thing is what? Created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you name it, anything. If it's a thing, if you denote the word thing on it, T-H-I-N-G, then that is what? Created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To be creation of the exalted and divine being. And it says that everything that has share of existence is created and brought into being by the Almighty God. Allahu khaliqu kulli shay'in. But it is noteworthy over here that Creator Himself, meaning the glorious God, is also a thing. Right? He Himself calls it. We're not calling Him that thing. He calls Himself a thing. I'll give you the ayat. However, based on an implicit connected reasoning, He is excluded from the scope of the general statement. So you cannot go ahead and include Him into kull shayin. Why? Because if He is also the similar thing that you and I are, because there's a riwayat from our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, he said that God is a thing in the truest sense of being, except that He has no body or form. وَأَنَّهُ شَيْءٌ بِحَقِيقَةِ الشَّيْئِيَّةِ غَيْرَ أَنَّهُ لَا جِسْمٌ وَلَا صُورَةٌ. He is the essence of everything, but there's no body and there's no form. And also, explaining this verse, it says, قُلْ أَيُّ شَيْءٍ أَكْبَرُ شَهَادَةً قُلِ اللَّهِ. It is stated that Allah is a thing Himself. Unlike other things, إِنَّهُ شَيْءٌ لَا كَالْأَشْيَاءِ. He is a thing, but not like other things. It's very difficult to explain, but He's a thing, but not like other things. But this last punchline will be explanatory. So thus God does not share the characteristics of other things. Like you and I can be called things. As human beings, we are things. We have certain things that we have. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not share those things with us. He's Sami', He's Alim, meaning He sees, and He's Basir, He hears. He has all those characteristics, but at what level? It's very difficult for us to fathom. So no other thing shares in God's attribute of perfection. Everything that He has is at the perfect level. Whatever we have, sort of like the prototype, right? Right now, it's still a prototype before it is given to everyone else. So God does not share in the deficiencies of others either. Rather, He's the creator, which itself establishes that God is not creation. In terms of thing, were to imply being created, it would result in the impossibility of the unity of the creator and the created. Meaning what? Allah is a thing who created Himself. We can't believe in that. We can't prove that. So that is impossible. For Allah to be the creator who's creating Himself is something which is impossible, and according to philosophy, it is difficult to fathom that how can something which created itself, that doesn't make any sense. So Allah is a thing, but He is the creator of everything else, and He did not create Himself either. He's always been there, and that's the concept of Him being azali and abadi. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So the glorious God is the wakil as well. Another attribute that He uses for Himself, wakil. Not like the wakil that we have, the wukala, the attorneys and the lawyers. The word wakil over everything that is called the thing, as stated in this ayat. So the word wikalat refers to guardianship. Now, that's just an English translation of it. They're ala kulli shay'in wakil, or tawakkul ala Allah, right? Everything relies upon Him. When everything relies upon Him, then He is the guardian over everything. And we can sort of understand when you are guardian of a child, meaning you have the ability to make all the decisions on behalf of that child. You have the ability to, execute all the wills and everything else regarding that child. You are the wakil of it, the guardian of it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the term wikalat is distinct from authority, wilayat. Wikalat and wilayat are two different things, but however, this distinction does not apply to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He's both wakil as well as He's wali. He's wali, He has the wilayat, and He also has the wikalat. Now, there are many ayat in Quran, which I'll just quickly summarize, which talk about those who deny. The last thing that this ayat talked about was that those who rejected the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا or كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ. This is an ayat which is repeated on numerous occasions in Quran. Maybe upwards of 30 ayat in Quran, which is specific word of those who deny the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala you find in Quran. So there are many ayat, as I said, chapter 2, ayat 99, chapter 3, ayat 70, chapter 4, ayat 56, chapter 16, ayat 104, chapter 2, ayat 61, chapter 3, ayat 98, and I have them all listed over here. But they're divided into the summary of all of these, maybe 30 ayat, is this. Number one, characteristics of those who deny God's signs, they reject and disbelieve in the clear signs of Allah. Meaning the signs are very clear. Sometimes you reject something which is not obvious to you, ambiguous to you. But these people reject the obvious things as well. They kill prophets unjustly and deny the truth despite witnessing it. They've seen the prophets. They denied them, and they would do what? On top of that, further was to go ahead and massacre and kill these prophets. They deny both the signs and the meeting of their Lord. Some ayat talk about that. They say, well, there's no meeting. Today you see the same thing, right? Many people say, there's no God. You're not going to see any God. You're not going to see any godly figure. So this is a denial from the past, nothing new. People today say the same thing. What is the punishment? There's a set of ayat. When talk about those who deny the signs, it talks about only their punishment. They will reside in hell where they will suffer eternally, number one. This ayat, their skin will be replaced repeatedly to intensify their punishment. Someone who's thrown into Jahannam for denial of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's signs will be treated differently than anyone else who goes to Jahannam. Why? This person who lands in Jahannam, Allah says, they will be burned their skin will regrow, it'll be burned again. Their skin will regrow, they'll be burned again. Their skin will regrow. So there's a continuous torture and the suffering that is mentioned in Surah Nisa, chapter 4, verse 56. Their action will become void. That is another outcome of their denial. They might believe in many things, but they're denying the absolute nature of God's existence. Everything else becomes void for them. And they will have. So this is where you understand. A lot of time people get confused. So, well, there's an atheist, but he's a philanthropist. There's someone who's a mushrik, but they also do a lot of charitable work. So how do you put these two together? Well, according to these ayat, their other actions are void because of the core belief of one God, where all of this is emerging from, is not being agreed upon. So the actions will have no weight on the Day of Judgment, according to the ayat of Quran. But again, who are we to judge? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will decide upon this person's fate, whether he accepts even from mushrik, from a munafiq, from a kafir, from an infidel, or whether he rejects it. But according to the ayat of Quran, Surah Kahf 105, it says their actions will become void and they will have no weight on the Day of Judgment. They face grievous and painful torment. Consequences of their actions continue, the eternal nature of their punishment, and then God's justice and authority, and the contrast with believers. All of these are emphasis on those who deny the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these two were the ayat that we recited from Surah Zumar, 62 and 63. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq and ability to understand the ayat of Quran, ponder over these verses, make them to be applicable in our lives, and make Quran to be part of our daily recitation and understanding, inshallah. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Allahumma salli. Assalamu alaikum Rasulullah, assalamu alaikum Nabi Allah, assalamu alaikum Habib Allah, assalamu alaikum Khiyaratullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, assalamu alaikum Abu Abdullah, assalamu alaikum Ibn Rasulullah, assalamu alaikum wa ala jaddika wa abik, wa ala ummika wa akhik wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, assalamu alaikum ya gharib al-ghuraba, assalamu alaikum mu'in al-du'afa wal-fuqara, assalamu alaikum shams al-shumus, wa anis al-nufus ayyul matfun ba'da dus.